Yeah. So starting with, initially we can categorize the different types of machine learning models. I mean, the basically the different types of learning. So at the most fundamental level, machine learning can be thought to be categorized into two main types. The first is the supervised learning, and the second is the unsupervised learning. So what does supervised learning mean? Supervised learning involves somehow modeling the relationship between the data and the labels which are associated with the data. You can say, for example, some dependent variable and some independent variables. Say, for example, a list of x values and a list of y values which are a function of x. So we'll need to figure out what kind of relationship actually exists between these x and these y values. So once this relationship here, this relationship is known as the model, which we are talking about is this model. So once this model, I mean the relationship is determined, it can be used to apply labels to new and unknown data. I mean make new predictions on data which we haven't seen, or not we, the model hasn't seen earlier. So this supervised learning is further subdivided into two main types of tasks. The first one is the classification tasks, and the second one is the regression task. Uh, Now, in the classification thing, the labels are discrete categories. Okay, so I mean, say you have a list of categories, say a bat, a ball, say some toys, etc. So you need to differentiate what are those. Say you upload a picture. Now your AI model has to tell that what is that. It may be a bat, it may be a ball, it may be a toy, or it may be something else. So these are basically predefined categories or predefined labels on which you are making a prediction. Basically, you would get different percentages of what can be that thing, the different predictions. So based on that, the one which is having the highest prediction, I mean the probability percentage, so that is the determined category by the model. So these are known as the classification tasks. Now here the labels are basically discrete categories. You are saying this is a toy, this is a cat, this is a bat, this is a ball, and all these things. Now like another thing is there under supervised learning, which is known as continuous quantities. Okay, so to determine these we need to do regression. So what are continuous quantities? Say for example, the number of COVID cases in a country. So it is a continuous quantity. On every day, the number of COVID cases is increasing, and according to the list of values of the data which we are having, we can actually plot that data and we can make some visualizations. We can make some predictions. We can draw some further analysis on that whole data. So this type of data is known as the continuous data. And another which we saw earlier was the discrete data, on which we do classification, and on the continuous data we do regression. So after this, we are coming to unsupervised learning. So unsupervised learning, it actually involves the features of a data set without any reference to any label. I mean, here it will not be told that this thing is a bat, this thing is a ball, this thing is a toy, this thing is a plant. It will not be told to the model. It has to determine itself. So the data set, it will speak for itself. So these types of unsupervised learning models, I mean, it will be fed in the types of learning where you feed in the data. I mean, you feed a data set based on which the model will learn and it will make some new predictions. This is known as supervised learning, where you are already providing some labeled data. Second one is the unsupervised learning, where you are not providing any labeled data. You are just providing these are the data points. Now you predict what are these, and you predict what are the new types of things which we are trying to classify or anything. So this is known as unsupervised learning, where the model will not know any previously labeled data. So the unsupervised learning are also again divided into two types of tasks. One is the clustering, and the second one is the dimensionality reduction. So the clustering algorithms, these identify distinct groups of data, while these dimensionality reduction algorithms, these search for more succinct representations of the data. Okay, so we saw that there are two types of learning, basically supervised and unsupervised. Supervised is of two types: classification and regression. Classification for discrete data, regression for continuous data. And unsupervised learning, there are basically unlabeled data. There are again two types: clustering and dimensionality reduction. Now, in addition, there are some other types of learning methods also, which are like semi-supervised learning methods. Now, which fall somewhere between the supervised learning and the unsupervised learning. Now, the semi-supervised learning models are often useful when only incomplete labels are available. I mean, a part of the data is labeled and a part is unlabeled. So these types of things. Now we'll first see the different types of supervised learning tasks. First is the classification task. So like in the classification tasks, we actually predict some discrete labels. And when we are proceeding to some regression tasks, what happens is that here any discrete labels is not available. So we actually perform some different types of regression tasks here, in which, say for example, there are a set of say 100 data points which are plotted onto a graph, and where each dot is represented by a specific color, and the color of that point represents the label for that point. Okay, say for example, one is a red dot and beside it is a blue dot. Say for example, the red dot specifies that the number of COVID cases were almost high, almost greater than 50,000, like this. And say for example, the blue dot, it represents that it was in between 20 to 30,000 for the day. So these types of things where we have continuous data, we apply some regression models on that. Okay. So, and after that, what do we mean by clustering, which comes under unsupervised learning? So clustering is in which data is automatically assigned to some number of discrete groups. I'll show you, for example, just a second. Uh, wait. All right, I'll just list it down and show it at the end. No issues. Uh, okay. So the clustering is when we actually have the whole data thing grouped into some few subgroups. So this is known as clustering, where the data is clustered into some subgroups. And in clustering, we'll also see there is another type of algorithm, say, which is known as k-means clustering. So we'll learn about that later. There are other types of other clustering algorithms also, for example, Gaussian mixture models and spectral clustering. So all these things we'll learn. So then coming in unsupervised learning, there is another thing known as dimensionality reduction. So which is like inferring the structure of the unlabeled data. So it is another type of unsupervised algorithm in which the labels or other information are inferred from the structure of the data set itself. So when you'll see this, you'll actually get to know what actually happens. For example, this I need to show. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes, Bhaiya.
So see, this is basically what can you see? This is a group of points which are spread out, and this is known as the dimensionality reduction, which I was talking about. Say, see here in this chart, it is clear that there is some structure which is associated with the data. Okay, so it is basically this whole thing you can if you think it in this way, that you can stretch, if it was a like type of string, you can stretch it and you can lay it flat straight. So this is actually arranged in some kind of spiral thing in two-dimensional space. So this data is basically one dimensional. If you can stretch it long, if you can lay it around any axis. So this the data is basically one dimensional, but it is spread in such a way that it is looking like a two-dimensional kind of data. So for these kinds of data, we actually perform dimensionality reduction. Means we are actually looking at these types of data. It is a 2D data. We are reducing its dimension. We are bringing it to 1D data, and then we are applying some specific algorithms which are applicable to these types of data. So a suitable dimensionality reduction model would be sensitive to this non-linear embedded structure. Okay, and would be able to know what kind of thing or what kind of dimension we can reduce this into. Okay, so there here different types of algorithms also works. The famous one which is used in dimensionality reduction is known as isomap algorithm. We'll look into that later on. Also, like there are other different types of dimensionality reduction algorithms. For example, principal component analysis, and there are other types of algorithms known as the manifold learning algorithms, which are known as, for example, isomap, and another one is there, the locally linear embeddings. So these are the different types of dimensionality reduction algorithms. Okay, the another thing which I talked about earlier was the clustering thing. It is also a kind of unsupervised type of learning. Wait. Okay, So just see this. Is it visible? So there are a group of data points basically. So this is known as clustering. So this is also done on unlabeled data. There are a few subgroups which are uh, divided into the data. So see, this is the subgroup one, this is two, this is three, there are four. So here are four subgroups of data. Here we can apply some algorithms, or we can, by eye it is clear to see that there is like these points, and each of these points is basically a part of a distinct group. So given this input, a clustering model will use the intrinsic structure of the data to determine which points are related. So using this very fast and intuitive algorithm, which is also known as the k-means algorithm, we'll see later, it is also known as the k-means clustering algorithm, we can basically form a few clusters based on this data. So here are basically four clusters. And the another things which I talked about earlier was the clustering is done. So the classification and the regression thing. So regression and classification we'll be seeing on from now. So from here, Swadesh will be taking along, and he'll be starting off with the linear regression and the types of regression, what actually happens in the supervised learning things. We'll mostly focus on the supervised learning for now, which actually involves the classification and regression. In the classification, we have discrete labels, whereas in the regression, we have some continuous labels or some continuous data. So, Swadesh, you can
Yeah,
take
yeah.
up from here.
Thank you. So today we'll be seeing, today in the next class, we'll be seeing mostly regression based algorithms. And for today, we'll be studying very deep into linear regression problems and linear regression models actually. And the basic of it, as I've already said, has been studied by you earlier also in your CPNM classes. And we'll be going more deeper than that that you already know. So in and later on, then we'll be going to other regression models such as maybe decision tree or logistic regression, and that we'll find out in the next class. So the next session, sorry. So starting off with linear regression. Okay, let me show you. Let me share my screen so that we get a basic understanding of what it does. Share screen. I hope it is visible. And so basically, let us say that we have a number of points on a graph. We have this data from earlier. So let us say I'm just drawing a graph, and let's say that we have this point, we have this point. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. This is another, there is another. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm giving you a number of points which have some xi and yi, and I want a machine learning algorithm to get this input xi and yi. Not exactly yi, but something like you can say yi cap, which we want it, to be as close to yi as possible, right? Because that is our data. Say for example, we want something like y equal to, let us say 3x plus 2. We have this graph. We want the machine to learn this without explicitly telling it that it is 3x plus 2, right? Uh, but overall, having points which are related by this formula, and then we want the algorithm to learn this formula by itself. This is a basic starting point, and finally we will have some output that will pass through some of the points. It will not pass through all the points, but it will be somewhere close to them. First, let us see the implementation, then we'll come back to this again, this diagram, and how it does so. So let me just share a different screen. a second. So I hope you can see my collab. There are again animals running around here and there, so that will be fun. Okay, let me just start it. Yes. Number, yes. And oh, I hope the dark theme is not disturbing you.
আর আমাকে মেডিকেল
Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll generate a few points using NumPy. So let us say, for example, we have our range of values which values, say for example from, okay, so first what we do is, so we will just initiate it. Say often you'll see this number 42, this is often used as seed, so I'm familiarizing you with this number. Range.rand. Basically what I'm doing is I'm generating certain points, nothing else. And let us say that y is equal to, as I said earlier, it would be 3x plus 2. So I know that this is 3x plus 2. I'm generating certain points from here, 3x plus 2. And then what we can do is we can add some non-linearity to it, so that it isn't exactly as a straight line, but somewhat near to it, because often data is not exactly a straight line, but close to something that is a straight line. Okay, so I guess I don't need to tell you about what these functions do. Basically, this generates 50 random numbers, and then this generates 50 random numbers which are added as a noise to this curve. Say if I had just commented it, then it would be a straight line, but I don't want a straight line because I want some noise added to it, right? And then what we can do is we can just use linear regressor from sklearn. So we can just import that class, say sklearn dot, let us check what we have here. Linear model, yes, import something like linear regression must be there. Yeah, linear regression. So that is our linear regression. So we'll just initialize the class, I mean with an objects. Then let us see what are the arguments that it takes, because that is very important. Whenever you use a class, I'll ask you to go through that. Okay. So what happens in Colab is that until unless you run us the import statement, it won't show you. Yeah, now it's, so it's fit intercept true. What is fit intercept? Whether to calculate the intercept for this model. Okay, intercept. So for we have the intercept here, we have the normalize, whether it will be normalized. Copy x n job. So nothing of that sort that will interest us for now. So we can just go along with this, and then what we can do is we can fit the model. What does fit mean? Fit. Okay, let us just check what are the available functions first. Okay. Oh, sorry. Once again, I need to run it. Then yeah. What are the available functions? Fit intercept. Okay, fit get params. These boxes are the are your functions. So this is the get params, the predict, score, and set parameters. So you can set parameters as you wish, or you can ask it to fit to the data that you have. So we have the X and the Y here. We want this model to fit to the data. What does fit mean? It only means that the machine learning model, it is learning the data that is given to it. So we'll have a fit X comma Y, and X here is a array like or a sparse matrix with any one, and it has to be of shape comma n features, right? So what does n samples and n features mean? N samples means that the number of rows, and n features means the number of columns. Okay, so here we actually have a 1D array, so we need to convert it to 2D array. Why? Because we have just one feature, and for every sample we have one feature, so it is a 2D array. That is why what we can do is we can write X, then all of those, and then add an axis to it. So basically we'll write np dot new axis. So whenever you want to add a new axis to it, you can always write np dot new axis. You can also go for np dot expand dims. You can see that later on. And y is our predictions. So let us again check that function. I would just have written this straight away, but I want you to learn how to understand and look into this. So like here we have array like of shape n samples. So it can be n samples or it can be n samples comma n targets. So if there are various targets, say 2 or more, then we want this, or directly we can have just a 1D array of n samples and sample weight. Okay, so we don't require the sample weight, we just want to fit it. Okay, so it's done. Okay, so now if we predict, let's say we predict it for some value, say 3, right? Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, now it will expected 2D array, got 1D array instead. Okay, so what was our earlier the function 3x plus 2? So wanted 3 into 3 plus 2, right? That is 11, and we are getting 11.02. Let us check for 5. It should be 3 into 15, 17, right? So 16.98. So you can see that it has a very good what should I say, ability to predict the function, right? To get this function 3x plus 2. Okay, so now if you wanted to plot this, say for example we wanted to see how it does over a range of values, what we could do is, let's say we have something like x test equal to np dot linspace. So basically linearly spacing, right? 0 start stop, and how many points do we want? We want, say for example 1000 points, and similarly y test will be equal to our prediction. So we are predicting for all x test. Again, this is a 1D array x test, so we'll add a new axis to it, and let us see whether we are successful. Yes, we are successful, and let us plot. Since x and y, okay, let us first plot and then I'll tell you. Let us see what scatter does. Yes, so as you can see, our model has been able to fit itself very beautifully with the data, right? It is almost very close to 3x plus 2, although it is not exactly equal to 3x plus 2, and this cannot happen, right? Because whenever the machine learning model is actually learning, it's not mugging up that for this value this is the output, right? So we got an overview over how it happens if we want to predict some function. So let us go back to our previous, yeah. So I'll just share that journal once more. Yeah. So basically what is happening right? It is a very pertinent question, I guess, because we are just doing the functions, but we are not understanding what is happening over there. So let us take, for example, something like a very steep line, right? It can be just any line. It's a random one, right? We have some data like this. And how does the model know that it has to go like this, right? It has to predict a line which actually passes like this. So what it does is that, let us say it begins, it has to begin somewhere. So let us say it begins at x equal to y, right? Now what it will do is that, say for example, for this point, it will check what is the y value, right? That is our true, there is a true value. It is also called the ground truth. So we have our yi, and here we have the xi. But it predicted that it will be there, right? On the first, at first, right? Predicted that it will be here. So that is our y1. So this is y1 cap, right? Again here, this is the value. This is the x2, x1, x2, and here we have y2, and here we have y2 cap, right? Of these points, it is checking what is the yi and what is the yi cap. Next, what it is doing is that it is subtracting these two, right? So it is subtracting, let's say, yi minus yi cap, and then it is squaring. So this is the error. This was the error, and it's now the square of the error, right? And then it is taking a mean. So let us say there are n examples. So we have, so this is what it is calculating after predicting this line, right? And this is called the cost function, or you can also say the loss function. And particularly this function is called the mean square error. So this is a MSE, or the mean square error. And after that, what it will do is that it will now predict another line. Let's say after seeing that this is a very large term, it wants to reduce it. Let's say it is predicting this line. And then again, it will calculate what is the difference here, what is the difference here. Here we can see there is no difference. Here there is a difference. And slowly it will optimize itself, right? So basically this is the equation y is equals to mx plus c. And it is doing nothing but optimizing this m and c after calculating this loss function, right? So and then we can also, yes, so I hope you got the very basic of it. We can also have other errors, such as, say for example, we can do a RMSE. So just going for the root of the MSE, nothing else. We can also go for, let's say, MAE, and which is actually nothing but 1 by n summation. Okay, did I give a summation here? Oh, sorry, very sorry. Here I should give a summation, right? Summation I, and here we are just taking the absolute difference, right? So this is the mean absolute error, right? We can also have similarly MSE, which is the logarithm of the error. Okay, that is also there. And finally, we have something called the R squared, but it is not used to calculate the cost function directly, or the loss function, the R squared, but it is actually to see how well the model is able to, let's say, generalized to the data, right? To how well it is able to predict on the data, right? Sorry, not. So what this does is that it calculates the average of something close to some variance kind of thing. So let's say we have yi, it subtracts yi cap. So this is for every, it is for every prediction, it is subtracting this, but it also divides this by the mean. So like if there are, say for example, n predictions, then it adds all the predictions and then finds the mean. So it does a mean, and then this is also squared. Oh, and this is equal to actually 1 minus. So sorry about that. Yeah, we have 1 minus, right? Yeah. So this is another way to evaluate how the models are doing. Basically, we are very much interested with this cost function, this one, because this is the most used one. We can also go for MAE. And now you might be asking me what is the difference between, or which one should I use, RMSE, MAE? And frankly speaking, not everybody agrees, and not everybody is quite sure about what is the difference directly, what is the difference and how they can affect the models, that is. And one thing I can say is that if let's say you have something that needs to be predicted as 5, but the model predicts it as 10, and then we wanted something to predict as 5, but the model is predicting it as 15, right? So it will penalize the model. That means it will have a higher value, in this case much higher value than this case. So this will be, in case of MAE, what will happen is from 5 it will go to 10, but for MSE this will be 25, right? 5 square 25, and this will be 100. So whenever it is further, the error grows exponentially by a square. Sorry, not exponentially. I'm sorry. It grows by a square. So it penalizes for large errors, that is. And I guess this is very understandable what I just now told. Could you just reply if it was understandable, if you have any questions? Because otherwise I'll just show you with another one example.
আমার একটা কোশ্চেন ছিল।
বলে ফেল।
এখানে ওই যে মানে ফাংশনটাকে অপটিমাইজ করছে কি মানে বারবার কি ওই যে যেটা আমার লস হচ্ছে সেটা দিকে অপটিমাইজ করছে প্রত্যেকবার?
এই জিনিসটা একটু পরে আমরা আসছি যে কিভাবে আমরা এই লাইনটা থেকে ধরেন এই লাইনটাই গেলাম, তুই এটা জিজ্ঞেস করছিস তো?
হ্যাঁ,
যে how are we going from this, first we predicted this, then we are predicting this, then we can predict from here to there. So how we are going from here to there to here to there, এটা একটু পরে আসবে, এটা জানি শাহনওয়াজ বোঝাবে। তো জাস্ট একটু ওয়েট করে যা, 10 মিনিটস তে, তারপরে
ওকে
এটাও বলবে। আচ্ছা, আরেকটা কোয়েশ্চেন আমি দেখলাম।
দাদা,
So what's the function of
দাদা বলছিলাম যে
np.num
মডেল
in the
এইখানে যে এমএসই আছে আর এমএই যেটা আছে,
হ্যাঁ,
এখানে আমরা কন্ডিশনের উপরে আমরা ডিপেন্ড করছি কোনটাকে ইউজ করব, নাকি একটা হার্ড এন্ড ফাস্ট রুল আছে যে একটা ইউজ করব?
No, there is no hard and fast rule. Actually, it sometimes depends on the kind of question. Sometimes it we do not know. We have to check whether RMSE is or MSE is doing better. I mean, by using MSE we are getting a better model, or by using MAE we are getting a better model. এটা আমরা কোনো মানে কোনো ইয়ে নেই আর কি, কোনো হার্ড এন্ড ফাস্ট রুল নেই যে এটার সময় এটা করতে হবে, এটার সময় এটা করতে হবে। বেসিক্যালি এগুলো কি প্রেডিক্টিভ মডেল না, প্রেডিক্টিভ মডেলে কখনো কোনো হার্ড এন্ড ফাস্ট রুল নেই যে এটাই করতে হবে, আছে
আমরা
use
actually
করতে
প্রত্যেক
হবে। হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা, তার মানে কি আমরা প্রত্যেকটা ইউজ করে দেখবো যে কোনটাতে এররটা মানে বেশি ডাইভার্স করছে, সেইভাবে choose
দেখ
করবো আমরা কোনটা।
বেসিক্যালি যখন তুই যদি কোনো একটা মডেল বানাস তখন তুই ফার্স্টে এমএসসি ইউজ করবি, তারপরে তোর যদি এখন আরো অপটিমাইজ করতে চাইছিস তখন তোকে একটা রেঞ্জ অফ ভ্যারিয়েশন দেখতে হবে, যে এমএসসি ইউজ করলাম, এমএসএলই ইউজ করলাম, তো একটা করে ইউজ করে দেখতে হবে আর কি।
ঠিক আছে।
আমি কোনো হার্ড এন্ড ফাস্ট রুল বলতে চাইছি না, অনেক সময় বলে যে যদি অনেক আউটলায়ার থাকে, আউটলায়ার মিন্স লেটস সে উই হ্যাভ দিস ডেটা and say for example we have another data here, possible, right? Because this is just a real world data and here we have one data. So for these cases when we are doing a square, you can see that this will be a very large variation, right? And often for due to these reasons the MSC becomes so huge that it is not quite usable. So in that cases we often use MAE, but এটা কোয়েশ্চেন টু কোয়েশ্চেন ভ্যারি করছে আর কি, মানে এটা হার্ড এন্ড ফাস্ট রুল।
এমনিতে কি মিন জেনারেল কেসে কি মানে আরএমএসি যেটা মানে রুট মিন যেটা হয় সেটা কি বেশি অ্যাকুরেট হয়? হ্যাঁ, সেটা কি বেশি অ্যাকুরেট?
বেশি অ্যাকুরেট ইন সার্টেন ওয়েজ এটা একটু অ্যাকুরেট বেশি, তাই জন্য এটা বেশি প্রেফারেবল আর কি।
চলো,
আর কি জিজ্ঞাসা করছিলি? আচ্ছা,
I was
কোশ্চেন
asking-
দেখলাম, can we calculate the expected value of the error? এরর তো 0 হবে রে, এরর তো যত কম হয় তত ভালো। হ্যাঁ বল, কি বলছিস?
হ্যাঁ, আমার কোশ্চেনটা হচ্ছে np.new axis what's the function of that?
ওই একটা নতুন
Collaborate.
অ্যাক্সেস অ্যাড করার জন্য আমি তোকে দেখিয়ে দিচ্ছি এখানে, ঠিক আছে? ধরে নে ফর এক্সাম্পল আমি x দিলাম, তাহলে এটা কি আসছে? এটা একটা 1D অ্যারে দেখতে পাচ্ছি, তাই না? আমি যদি শেপ দিই তাহলে 50 দেখতে পাচ্ছি। কমাটা বাদ দিয়ে দে, ওটা জাস্ট ওটা নামপাই এর একটা আজব জিনিস, আমি কোনোদিন বুঝতে পারিনি। খুব
ওই স্ক্রিনটা দেখতে পাচ্ছি না আমরা,
সরি
নোটপ্যাড স্ক্রিনটাই দেখছি।
হ্যাঁ শেপ, ওকে, ওকে, দেখতে পাচ্ছিস তো এখানে? লেটস সে আমরা x টা প্রিন্ট করলাম, হ্যাঁ 50টা ভ্যালুস ছিল এটা, সো উই আর প্রিন্টিং x। সো এটা স্ট্রাকচার দেখতে পাচ্ছিস তো 1D আরে। নাও আমরা যদি এখানে np.lins np.new access করি, দেন দেখবি এটা কি হয়ে যাচ্ছে যে প্রতিটা ইয়েতে ভ্যালু এখন একটা 2 ডাইমেনশনাল অ্যারে হিসেবে হয়ে গেছে। হোয়াট ইজ মানে করার মানেটা কি, যে যখন আমাদের যে 1D অ্যারে ছিল, মডেলটা কি বুঝবে যে ওই 1D অ্যারের প্রতি ভ্যালুটা কি, সেটাও বুঝতে পারবে না। তো তাই জন্য আমরা যখন এই যে 2 ডাইমেনশনাল করে দিচ্ছি, ও বুঝবে যে দিস ইজ 1 রো এন্ড দিস ইজ 1 কলাম, বুঝলি তো? এরকম করে 50টা রো আমার কাছে আছে, আর এরকম করে একটা কলাম আছে, এবং 2-3টে কলাম থাকতে পারে। আমি এখন স্টার্টিং এর জন্য এখন এর পরেই আমি আরো 2-3টে কলাম দেখাবো, বাট বেসিক্যালি এটাই হচ্ছে আইডিয়াটা। নিউ অ্যাক্সিসটা খুব একটা কাজের জিনিস নয়, যখন তুই এমনি মেশিন লার্নিং মডেল করবি না, তখন তোর কাছে 10-15টা কলাম থাকবে, তোর এই নিউ অ্যাক্সিসটা কাজে লাগবে না। বাট এটা জেনে রাখা ভালো যে নিউ অ্যাক্সিসটা একটা অ্যাক্সিস অ্যাড করে। সিমিলারলি ইউ ক্যান অলসো ইউজ np.expand dims, এরকম এটাও করা যায়। np. দেখে নি np-টা কোথায়, np নিচ্ছেন, ও আচ্ছা সরি x.expand dims হবে, সরি, just a second. হ্যাঁ, np.expand dims তো এইতো np.expand dims, ঠিক আছে। সো x, axis equal to আমরা 1 যদি দিয়ে দিই, একই জিনিসই হবে, এটা একই জিনিসই হবে। তো এটা যদি বড় লেখা, ওটা ছোট লেখা, ওটা ইজিলি বোঝা যাচ্ছে, তাই জন্য ওরকম করা হচ্ছে।
আরেকটা উপরে একটু দেখলাম যে 0,10,1000 নিয়েছে উপরে, একটু উপরে
হ্যাঁ,
দিকে
ওটা
যাও তো।
লিনিয়ারলি স্পেসিং করা হচ্ছে, এটা লিনিয়ারলি স্পেসিং করা হচ্ছে 0 থেকে 10 এর মধ্যে 1000 টাকা ভ্যালু।
ও আচ্ছা আচ্ছা।
আর কিছু কোয়েশ্চেন্স? ওকে ওকে, যদি না থাকে দেন আই উইল জাস্ট বি মুভিং অন টু নিউ একটা আমরা আইটা ডেটা দেখে নিই, সরি। ঠিক আছে, so what we will do now is that we will check on a very very popular data, ঠিক আছে, sklearn পাওয়া যাবে। So from sklearn.datasets we will import Boston dataset, right? Load Boston, just like আমরা এটা কিছুদিন আগে just like we saw California dataset a few days back, we'll be using a Boston dataset, very very similar. So let us go for that and load Boston. Let's go for Boston equal load Boston, and we'll check what is Boston. Boston is actually this is a pandas data frame, so we'll just check head 5. Okay. Oh, acha. Boston is not actually in the one data frame. What is actually a class? We have it in a different format here. Okay, no problem. So basically we have the data here. This is actually a the JSON format, right? We have the data here, the feature names, right? File name, target, and these are target values. So basically what this does is that it will these are all these have some meanings, okay? So and these are actually the prices for houses. So you'll have a med v, okay. We can actually use this one, file name. Okay, let us go for this one. Copy pd dot csv. Okay, we'll just import pandas as pd. Read csv. It should work. Yeah. Oh, okay. This didn't come as expected. Anyways, what I wanted to say is that this is a housing data set. So house prices. This is the median price actually in a region, and in that region, what are the different values, right? So, for example, we can. I'll just check on the meanings because I don't want to say anything wrong here. Just give me just a second. Yeah. So yeah. So for example, CRIM actually means the per capita crime rate by town. Okay. So this is a per capita crime rate, right? And then we have ZN, which means proportion of residential land zoned for lots over 25,000 square feet. So that's something doing with land. How much is what is the area of the lots, right? We have Indus, which actually means proportion of non-retail business acres per town. So we have the CAS, which is related to some river, Charles River dummy variable, which means that is it near to the river or not. We have NOx, which is the nitric oxide concentration in that region in ppm. RM, average number of rooms per dwelling. So this is the average number of rooms, and so on and so forth. Age means what is the age of the houses, right? So we have all this, and finally we are wanted to predict this. What will the price? Given all these features, what is the price? here, right? So what we can do is that, okay, so I was actually writing wrong here. Let me do it like this. We have Boston data set, right? Right. Now we can use it as a Boston.net. Yeah, now this is good. And basically here we are actually going for just the X values, right? Okay. And now if you want to use linear regression over this, and our Y values will actually come from the MED-V ones. Yes. So okay, now you'll be wondering that I showed you as X is one value and Y is one value. Now what about this? What happens here is that I'll just share, yeah. Just sharing this screen, and I'll just show you one thing, right? Yeah. So basically when we have, say for example, multiple features, let's say we have something like F1, F2, F3, just like we had here Zn, cream, then there were so many F4 dot Fn. So what happens is that we are trying to make this, so let's say Y equal to F1 X1, right, plus F2 X2 plus F3 X3 plus dot Fn Xn. And so lastly, we can also add C, which can be treated as the bias finding, right? So, or the intercept, you can also say that as well. So basically, Y is actually now a function of multiple variables, so X1, X2, X3, X4, and Xn, and this is what the model will now be trying to learn, right? How this data set is functioning. So going back to right. So if we want a new model, that is a linear, let's say, regression model, right? And then what we want is to fit it, and then here we don't need to have a new axis because it is already having rows and columns. So we can just go for Boston, comma, or we can also have an array, but it will convert it to an array. So let us just convert it as an array. Okay. Anytime you have any problems, if it is working or not, just go forward with the code. Yes, this is working, right? So we'll just write np.array, and here we'll have Boston data set, and here we have the target, if I'm not wrong. I'll just check that again. Yeah, Boston target, right? Right. So Boston data set target, yes. Let us see if it works. Yes, it has worked. This is actually linear regression is works very fast because it is a very simple model with respect to other models. And okay, let us do something, right? Let me teach you what is train and val. Okay, so what happens is that since there are so much data, what we can do is we can keep some of the data for training and some of the data for prediction to see how the model is doing on some data which it hasn't looked into before. Validation set. Training set is used for training and validation set is used for validation. So we can do it in two ways. Number one is manually. I might manually by writing code. You need to write the function yourself, or by using some function that is from sklearn dot model selection, we have import, what do we have? Train test split, I guess. Yes, train test split. Yes. So what it does here is that it will split it for us, and we require the arrays and the options, right? So we have test size, train size, and the arrays. Okay. So here we had these two as our x and y. Let us try this. So dot shape. Oh, it's a list object, right? Okay. So didn't need to give a, you just give a comma, so it will actually take all the arrays, and then finally we can give it a test size equal to 0. Let's say we take 80% in the train set and 20% in the validation set. I'm not putting any variable to it. We just want to see this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third. Okay. So as you can see here, there begins an array, right? It finishes here, and there is a second array which is a validation set, right? Again we have the test here, a train here, sorry, and a test here. So you can call it you can call it train, you can call it test or validation. Actually what validation means is that you want to validate the model, that is you want to check how it performs on some labeled unknown data. So the model has not looked into this data before, but it is labeled, and test actually means on some data which doesn't have any label. Say for example you are in some problem, you are solving some problem, and then you get some data which is, for which you do not know the prediction. You want to see how it is performing or what is the output, but you don't know what will be the prediction. That is called a test set. And the validation set is, you know what should be the output, and you want to check how it is performing, right? So we'll just, here we just have train and test or validation, anything we can write. So let's say we are going for train, x test, y train, y test. Okay, so that will be a train and a test. So we'll have x train, we'll use x train, we'll use y train, and we'll use x test and y test for validation. So let us again, okay, I'll just restart this so that we can start from the beginning again. We'll just, yes. Oh, we don't need this one. And seems there's a problem. Oh, okay. Yeah, now it's really working fine. And we will not here do it here, we'll do it here. Train test split, right? Yes. Now we'll go for model.fit x train and y train. Okay. After fitting, what we can do is we can evaluate it. So let us first train. Yes, this is trained. And now what we can do is Mendel.predict. We want to predict on x test, for which we have the y test, but we want to evaluate the model. So let us say we call it y pred, right? Y pred, or maybe even pred. Okay, let us just call it pred, right? Just call it preds. Then we can now see various errors. Say for example, we want the root mean square error or the mean square error, whatever. So we will just sklearn dot check what is there. Model selection. selection. Go for the matrix. Import what do we have here? Import mean squared error. Let's see. We have mean squared error. Yeah, we have mean squared error. So we'll just import that. Okay, let us do another thing. We can also check others as well. Mean absolute error. We can also check, for example, let us check the R square. Yeah, R2 score. Yeah, this is R square that I just not told. And basically we can, what we need to do is just pass them, right? Like mean, yeah, mean squared error. And then we have the y true comma y pred, right? So first we will go for the true one, that is y test for us, and then we will go for y pred, that is the preds here, and then sample weight, nothing. Okay, no. So let us see the mean square error. See, this is 23, and if we check, for example, mean absolute error, right? Again, just we have 3.512. Okay, this is actually, this should be the square root because SQR, because this is the squared error. So we can just square root it and find out. This is larger. This has to be larger, right? It is squaring. And often this is a boon because it helps to reduce models from predicting very large or very some values which actually have a lot of difference. So it will penalize the model for that, right? So in those cases, it is very good. We can also go for the R2 score, which again is y true, y pred, and then we can see the R2 score, it is 0.74, right? So I guess this was it for this linear, how it optimizes the learning function that Shahnaz will tell right now. Before that, any questions, anything else you want to ask? Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, Swadesh, actually, it's already been a long session. I think continuing that in the next one will be better. I mean, it's a long topic actually. After this thing.
Okay.
I think so. I mean, people would also need concentration on that. So we can quickly wrap up this part. At least this linear regression part is quite a lot important part, which will come very
let
handy.
me actually finish polynomial regression because that is just a very small portion of the whole. Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. All right. Yeah. Anybody has any doubts up till this?
Yeah.
Obviously, you will get the recording after this. You can also rewatch it anytime. We'll also give you the resources, no issues. But up till this, if you are having any issues regarding what he has told or what you are wanting to know, you can just quickly bring it up in the chat or unmute and say. All right. Let's proceed. It's just a 5-10 minutes more. We'll get through the polynomial regression and then we can move on to what are the different techniques of
actually
this.
Simple. We don't do much in polynomial regression. That is.
Ritam is asking, we need to remember the libraries and functions imported.
Not exactly, because what will happen is that slowly you will have to do it multiple times if you are interested and if you want to learn more, or maybe you want to try on more and more data sets, maybe participate in competitions and all, then you will have the habit of knowing what is there and what is not there. So just like most of these functions I was just remembering or I was just checking. As I showed you, I could just have written directly, but I was trying to show you how I do it, right? Say I know there is something called train test split in sklearn, and then I will go through these suggestions, and then I'll find out, let's say it should be something called matrix, right? So train test split will be something in called model selection. So I go for model selection and import train test split. And you also have Google, so you can always Google anything and you'll find it, right? You have the sklearn docs as well, documentation that is. So you have all those, and you don't need to remember anything. You need to remember the basic concepts, and obviously you need to remember that we are using sklearn, at least scikit-learn actually. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, then I'll just in 10 minutes I'll go through polynomial regression, because in polynomial regression we don't do anything other than linear regression, but applied on variables which are raised to some power. So in polynomials we have x to the power 2, x to the 3, and x square, x cube, x to the 4, x to the 5, and so on and so forth. And what we can do is that instead of just going for y equal to some 2x plus 3, we can actually check whether it is better in y equal to something like x square plus 3, for example. Okay, just a second before I continue. Yeah. Yeah. So let us say, let me just copy these, because we'll be doing this very same things. So copy this. Yeah.
Basically, we need to first know like what kind of data we are hitting. If the data is a kind of linear data, we can fit it into a straight line. Then we apply linear regression. And if the data is non-linear, say for example, the data is spread in such a way that it represents some kind of quadratic equation in the two-dimensional axis. So then we move on to this method, which is known as polynomial regression.
Yeah. So as you can see here, what I'm taking here is 3x squared plus 2. Basically, you never know if it is a linear data, if it's a polynomial data when you are doing it in real world. Now I know that this will be a square or some some square or some cube or anything else. But again, the question is, should I be doing in linear? Should I be doing in polynomial? You never know actually. Because we will having a number of columns, a number of features and predictions that we have to do, and in those cases we can't directly plot, right? We can't directly plot a number of x values. That will be nth dimensional problem, right? So in that case, what we can do is that we can try out different formats. Just like, say for example, here I am trying see x square plus 2. Yes, this is 3x square plus 2, right? As you can see. And then what I'll do is, okay, let us do, let us increase these twice and let us see what happens. Okay, 10 times. I just increasing the bias. Okay, this is a very good bias, right? So this is 3x square plus 2, right? And what now I'll do is, I'll again predict this. Let us see what happens, right? Before continuing with polynomial regression. As you can see, it again plotted on some, some linear scale. It couldn't understand this and tried to fit a line to this quadratic equation, because we have told you this is a linear regression and we have just given one column which is x and asking it to fit for y, and then it has given us the best predicted curve based on mean square error. So this is the best predicted curve for mean square error, and thus we have it, right? But what we could do is that when we see, so in this case, what will be the error? Okay. Let us just quickly check what is the error. I'm just doing it on the train data on y, comma, then we have, okay. model.np. Let us see. This is 23.89. So this is the square root. That is 23.89. So I can see how large the error is. But what we could do is that we could actually import something called the polynomial features. So what we can do is we can go for sklearn.preprocessing and import polynomial features. Basically, I am doing this using again another class. You can just do it directly. I'll just show you same things. So if we sorry, no, sorry. Okay, I've lost my mind since x square. So if I do just x square, then only it will be done. So okay, and here I am using polynomial features, right? So let us use this one so that in future when you have multiple data, you don't have to go and do for every column x square and then get the values. So we'll just be seeing this. First we'll initialize with the object. Let us call it poly f. No, not f. Features. F means something different. 2, right? We have degree 2. And then we can actually, what it will do is object will call the fit transform, right? What fit transform does is that it will fit and then transform this x to have polynomial features, that is x squared. If we had given here x cube, then it will have x cube, x square. So things like those, right? Equal to, right? Now let us check how x poly looks. Okay, I guess. Oh, sorry. X again. We have to do np.new axis. Okay, so now we can go for x poly. Now we can go for this model again. Model equal to the time by you. It is na. Sorry. Dot fit x underscore poly. Okay, just let us take a look into x underscore poly before moving on. Okay. So here you can see this is 1, this is x, and this is x squared, right? So x squared plus x plus 1. No, this is not plus, this is x squared, x and 1. And then we'll have fit, we'll have the fit to it so that we'll get to know how it is performing. And again, we'll fit y to it. Fit x poly and y, and then let us check how this is doing, right? Just have here x underscore poly. You see the error reduced from 23 to 9. You can also go for our scatter plot, right? Okay. Let me just copy this and this, copy, paste it here. And we have x test, y test. No, we'll not more do it here. We'll go for the fit. So we have already the poly features. We can actually directly use this. So we'll have x test underscore poly equal to this features dot fit, no, dot transform, sorry, dot transform x underscore test. Okay, and then what we can do is x underscore test underscore poly. Hope this is no error. Oh, again I did the same mistake. Comma np.new axis. Yeah, and we have here X test only. Oh, sorry, X test only. Yeah, see, this is now has generalized to a quadratic curve, more like a quadratic curve. And basically, the thing is that you cannot actually have a something more, some model which will be doing the polynomial curve for you directly for you. But what we can do is that we can increase the number of features. So we have here, like we had here x and x square, and we found out that with x square it was better able to find the curve. And that is how we do polynomial regression. Basically, linear regression to applied to the same features, but there are increased number of features because we are squaring each and every column. So that is all. Any questions, or we can wrap up here for today, and we'll continue with the next session. How many are left? 11 people still here. Thank you, everyone. I hope it was interesting. Any questions?